Good morning, good evening, or maybe even good afternoon for those of you who are watching. My name is Vivian Acquah. I'm an inclusion strategist and a CQ facilitator, and I've been hosting Let's Humanize the Workplace ever since 2019. So you have to imagine that I've been doing this almost for 7 years, and really fun and exciting conversations that I've been having, also because I believe in the concept of let's humanize the workplace. So what I do is I'm an inclusion strategist who supports leaders and their team to remove barriers that hinder high performance, that hinder effective collaboration, and that hinder effective communication as well. So I've been doing that in the Netherlands, from the Netherlands and Amsterdam, but also locally as well. And I always love to have these conversations. So know that the previous conversation that I did with Amelia Barger, that was an amazing conversation. It was about this book, The Price of Nice, which is really a pivotal book for those who want to boost effective collaboration and communication. Also have a look into Talk to Me Nice as well as a conversation that I did. So look up YouTube channel Amplify DEI, or look up within LinkedIn, if you're watching it from LinkedIn, look up all the events that I've hosted so that you can look at the previous conversation. But today we are talking about from culture clash to culture match. And this topic came to life when I had a lunch date with Marjolijn beginning of the year, and we had a conversation about I just watched Ted Lasso, and she also was into the new episode of Emily in Paris. And before we dive into that, we need to introduce Marjolijn. So Marjolijn, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Vivian. Yes, I can. We have these conversations and we just dive right in usually.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Before we do, I am Marjolijn Vlug. I am a professional coach based in the Netherlands, but I work mainly with internationals. And that is coaching on personal topics, on career topics, on diversity and inclusion related work, and anything that means for people's lives, and mainly in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
That said, it's interesting how you say that, humanizing the workplace has been part of your profile for so long. That's also why we click a lot, we resonate, and we go deep on that stuff.
Exactly.
I also realized how much cultural intelligence and cultural diversity, I think cultural inclusion has been part of my profile ever since I was 18. I went to management school. And the jobs that I've had since, so in management, in HR, and in coaching, and in my personal life, it's always a lot of it. A lot of that has been around awareness of cultural differences, and they can be national differences, cultural, different cultures of where you've lived. That can even be local, and that comes into play in so many ways. So I'm fascinated by this conversation. Knowing you and me, we will bring up food. So in case of Emily in Paris, that might be croissants. In terms of Ted Lasso, you tell me what are good examples there.
Scones.
Yeah, and there is a book that I warmly recommend around culture, but if you want to talk stories and if you want to talk cookbooks, they're all here behind me. So let's bring that in. Yeah,
Definitely. So to set the stage, I'm going to bring in a presentation. So because I am, I'm based in Europe, in the Netherlands, I am focusing on that, but let's see it as the average, where companies are having so many vacancies open, where they have a lot of vacancies open for being able to scale, being able to grow, and being able to cater to so many companies or so many clients. However, they are not finding the talent. So sometimes they bring out talent from abroad. And I just wanted to show you this because this is a picture what was painted a few years ago, but it's still very relevant within Europe that the talent shortages will be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So see this as a mini masterclass of how to win, how to attract talent, but also how to win talent, not lose them too soon, because this will be a game changer for you and also for your team as well when you apply the tips that we share in this session. So this image, I can definitely share this. Know that those of you who signed up for this via LinkedIn, you will get a PDF where I will also share a short summary, a highlight of the conversation, but also you get the PDF with the images attached to that. So you don't have to take screenshots. Know that you can always reach out to get the PDF if I haven't sent you the PDF within 3 days. Give me 3 days so you'll get the PDF. Okay.
Perfect. And there's some good stuff coming in the rest of our conversation as well. And that's about hiring talent. And I was in HR and recruitment, so it's about getting people in, but it's also about optimizing the situation once people are in. You know,
yes.
How do you make use of that and not make that a waste of investment, time, and money that you hired someone when they either leave or they can't do their work well. So yeah, great stuff bringing that in.
You're bringing a topic in because when it comes to recruiting a talent, right? The recruiters are putting in a lot of work and a lot of efforts when it's done right, a lot of work, a lot of effort, but also the amount of money that is invested in that. And then when somebody comes in and they are not getting the proper onboarding and they leave the company too soon, then there's another vacancy out there. That's also your organization losing money as well. So you have to be very mindful of the job honeymoon, that when it extends beyond, let's say the job honeymoon is within 3 months and 1 year. If a person leaves within that period, it says something about the expectation, and also says something about what the company has been saying or what has been shared during an interview as well. Is it because if it's not aligned, that can mean that a person may leave sooner than later. And you have done all the work, put in all the effort, bringing the person from a different country, and then they decide to leave. So I want us to prevent that. But today we have two people that we are going to talk about. Marjolijn will talk about Emily in Paris, and I will talk about Ted Lasso. So to introduce, let me introduce Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is an American football player or football coach. Football as in the American football coach who has been hired to become a soccer coach for a big league UK soccer team, but knows nothing about soccer. Doesn't know anything about the finesse that happens within the UK. And it's a fun series. But it's also a valuable series for those of you who want to see the workplace or the dynamics in the workplace from a different stage. And it's easier to digest. And I really like the example that has been shared. Can you say something about Emily?
Yeah, sure. And there's a lot to learn from Ted Lasso when you watch it, because I've heard so much about it. It's on my to watch list, so I'm going to ask you all about it as well. And one of the things that is really good to learn from is this cultural angle. Now, Emily in Paris is very much a pop culture TV show. It's not as deep, and it doesn't teach you as much about interactions in the workplace as Ted Lasso would be, or about being a great manager. It's great fun. It has great outfits and fashion, and yet it's a great example of intercultural collaboration in the workplace, about where that goes wrong, about what goes right, and in that sense, it's also just pop fun and bubbly. But still teaches you stuff while you're enjoying it and having your popcorn or your chocolate when you watch it. So it's about Emily. Emily Cooper is an American from Chicago who moves to Paris, initially temporarily to work at an ad agency. And while she's there, she realizes she doesn't want to go back home. She wants to stay. but she also finds out that life in Paris is not like her life was in Chicago. And the way that her colleagues work with each other is wildly different. So that's it's really interesting to watch from that angle.
Yeah, and also know that Emily Powers is being shown on Netflix, and by no means we are not affiliated or get no money for promoting this. We are just sharing it because both series contain a lot of valuable challenges that also portray in the real life challenge, right? So I'm just going to highlight that as well. If there is somebody watching from Netflix or from Apple TV, I mean, we always love to be sponsored, by the way, but this is just a conversation that we're having, connecting it because there are culture clashes as well. So
yeah, and if you're watching this and you realize, oh, this is other show that is also a great way to learn about cultural differences in the workplace, throw it in.
Exactly.
We're happy to share that with other people. The fun thing is that there's so much to learn from television. There's so much to learn when you look in the right corners, when you look with certain glasses on, and then it's also more fun to talk about. That's basically what we do.
Definitely. So I see, I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing your name right, Vary. But I see your comment here sharing that culture clash ends to ash while culture match. Either you win, draw, lose, yet there is a second chance to adjust, definitely. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm bringing up cultural intelligence as well during this conversation. So you have to see that Ted Lasso, and the same goes for Emily, they are being placed in a country where there is no pre-work. Nobody shared any pre-work about the finesse, about the undercurrent that is happening in both countries, right? So I'm going to share the UK side. I'm going to talk about Ted Lasso. So Ted Lasso, a guy who comes with his co-coach to the UK in London and is alone and is sharing US phrases that don't do well with the UK public. And then again, so many people don't have trust in him because him being a football coach, coming from the US, coming to the UK, not knowing the lay of the field, not knowing the undercurrent within the UK, also not knowing how the UK press can sometimes be mean, depending on the topic, but they can be harsh when it comes to football. And also the people need to earn their trust. The team needs to earn their trust, right? So I would say that Ted could have been set up with a proper pre-onboarding, learning more about the UK, also learning more about the culture, the football culture within the UK. Every country has their own football culture, depending on if the soccer club is playing in a Premier League or not so Premier League or playing Champions League, right? So those are the things that also matter. And beer is different, music is a little bit different, and what you see on television isn't always the same as what you see in real life. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because we learn a lot from the TV, from the television series. Until you go to a country, those assumptions may be good or may be bad, but it can hinder you, right? So having a proper onboarding package, pre-onboarding package, what do you need to learn? Learn about the rules of engagement of a company, of the team, of what do they love to eat, how to connect with people. And I want to bring it over to Marjolijn, who's going to address things from Emily's side.
Yeah, and what I love what you're saying is there is a big opportunity for cultural onboarding, specifically on cultural differences. Yeah. And what I believe is, one thing I believe is different between Ted Lasso and Emily in Paris is that the connection, or the transfer from the UK to the US and from the US to the UK is one of the most underestimated. So Emily moving from the US to Paris has it slightly differently. There's more awareness already of how cultures are different. And between the UK and the US, there's a lot more unknowns where you think people will be the same, and it's actually not the case. So that cultural onboarding is even more essential there, because of what is, goes under the radar of what people are unaware of. So with Emily in Paris, there's a lot of this honeymoon phase, really, of where you think, oh, it's so cute, it's so Parisian, until you get to the challenges and you think, oh, what's going on here? So what it made me realize is that it's really about becoming aware of anything that may be a cultural difference, is just being open about that and having a look at that. So Emily has no idea. She just goes into the office like she would in the US, and is surprised by how differently people behave, by how much longer their lunches are, by how differently they make decisions, by what she can and cannot do with clients, but also with the uniqueness of her ideas and her energy and her input and the innovations that she brings. So there's a lot of benefits around that as well. What I see as the biggest challenges is where on one hand you don't realize that the differences are there, which is heightened in the case of US, UK. And once you notice a difference, you start to judge it. So what Emily encountered, so she's this big-eyed, cheerful, super hyper positive American woman, but very girly. In the Parisian context, where a lot of judgment shows up. A lot of judgments around what she wears, around how she behaves, around, she must be really tacky and vulgar, she must be stupid. There's lots of judgment, which is funny when you watch it in the show. But when it's what happens in reality in your work life, it really limits your resourcefulness and your curiosity of finding out, hey, what's a good solution here?
Exactly.
And that's a lot of what I see happening. So what you just said about Ted Lasso, about getting a pushback from the press, for example, you get the judgment and poof, it sort of smacks the lid on your nose on both sides, both on the people that are already in the context in the country, in the organization, who see fewer opportunities and fewer, hey, let's figure this stuff out, as well as the person who's moved, who has a lot on their plate already anyway.
Definitely. And also regarding Emily, I also want to share, you mentioned that it's underestimated whether a person is from the US going to the UK or from the UK going to the US, because they think that we already speak the language or we already understand each other. So the gap must be smaller, but it isn't. And with Emily, there is a lot of je ne sais quoi, the French sayings, everything is done in French. So for her, it's adamant for her to learn French. And I would say, I would even go a step further. If a new person is coming within your company and the main language is French, why not set them up to speak French sooner, set them up in the country of origin so that they can learn to speak French as soon as they can? Because I've seen so many people being excluded from conversations, even though the main language within the company might be English. But the moment that people are in small gatherings, it happens in the Netherlands, it happens in France, it happens in Portugal and in Germany. The moment that the majority speak their local language, that's the moment that exclusion happens. Even though it's not intended, exclusion is happening as well. I see a lot of comments coming in, so let me address the comments as well. Patricia is asking, how many companies do have a cultural onboarding for new colleagues? Well, that question. In all honesty and fairness, though, with the companies that I've been collaborating, so I can only share things from my perspective as well. it's not a common thing that I see. Oftentimes people get a onboarding, or they get a budget, and they need to sort it out themselves. So if you are applying for a new position in a new country, I want to share this question with you, is ask during the interview, or ask at the end of the process, ask, like, how does the onboarding look? Are there any CQ tests or assessments that you can do, or does the company provide that as well? But also, what does the onboarding look like given the fact that you are from abroad? What would you like to add, Marjolijn?
Yeah, well, there are trainings, cultural transition trainings, cultural awareness trainings that are available. And some, especially the bigger companies, have expat support programs and agencies that support that. I do that work as a coach, for example. I work through these agencies. And sometimes you just, it needs to be developed, and then there's a big growth opportunity for HR and for talent management to expand that and to become even more knowledgeable around what it takes and what the essentials are.
Also, don't forget the learning and development team as well. I do feel like it also falls under their radar or their scope into providing a toolkit for the people to get to know the lay of the land, right? I'm lucky. I think that we are lucky that we live in a day and age where people can have access to TikTok. There are a few famous influencers that share certain finesse when it comes to being in the Netherlands, right? You don't go to somebody's house at 6 p.m. unannounced, not at the majority, unannounced, because you don't know if they have an extra plate. Whilst in my culture, in the Ghanaian culture, I mean, if you're here 6 p.m. and you want to get food, we can always cook something up, right? So there is a difference between, not all the Dutch people are like that, or not all houses are like that, but some people would rather have the announcement of I'm showing up within 5 minutes, or some houses are there like, you can show up anytime, I will fix a plate for you, right? And those finesses, it's different when you come from a space where you can always look into somebody else, their fridge, to get your food or to make food, right? Those are the different things. So
yeah, and in the workplace, it's there's different topics that can vary very widely around. Yeah. I think you wrote that earlier, for example, of expectations around, hey, I'll send you an email or a message after work hours. Do I expect you to respond immediately or not? That's a very cultural thing too. That's something that Emily ran into. Her Parisian colleagues are not amused. They're going to be on their private time after work hours, and she's very used to just being on all the time. And in a sense, what is often forgotten is that there's no right or wrong. There's no, oh, you're doing it wrong when I'm doing it right.
Exactly.
When I ring your doorbell at 6 o'clock, you should just welcome me with all the food you have in the house. Or you should just respect that I don't ring my doorbell at 6 o'clock. There's such a backstory around what people are used to. It's actually fascinating to realize, in other places, this makes total sense. And this is how things developed. So let's get curious. How interesting is that? Rather than, they're doing it so wrong. It's so stupid. It's not stupid at all. It makes total sense. And there are core areas where that often happens. So, and then, you've learned a lot about that as well. And waving around a book. This is one of the books that I really enjoy, The Culture Map by Anne Meyer. Because she explores certain specific areas where cultural differences can be most nuanced. And that's in terms of making assumptions around hierarchy, around time, around feedback. And it really clarifies how there's no right or wrong. It's just, we do it this way, you do it that way.
Exactly.
The interesting thing is where, one group or one person says, hey, mine is more logical. Mine makes more sense. Let's make an assumption that you all know that we should all do it this way. Or especially when there's a judgment that is even related to colonial history. So you are from a country where it's always been more backwards, so you're going to be immediately there's a judgment on that. And
exactly.
That just gets you stuck. Apart from all the other things that gets you into trouble for, it just gets you really, really stuck. And this is about people that you invited to work with you, and they're here, and you can use, and you can, leverage that. If you get stuck because of all the judgment, that's a really a huge lost opportunity. It's a breakdown in trust in the relationship. And it's also a lot less fun because it's a lot of fun to be fascinated about how people do things differently.
Exactly. But also all these cultural misunderstandings, whether they come from the person who's new to the country or the person who is from the country and is portraying that with the new colleague, these are all barriers, unnecessary barriers that hinder innovation, that hinder high performance, that hinder effective collaboration and communication, right? These are all things that are amplifying unconscious biases from happening. So Marjolijn just showed the book of Culture Map. I don't have the book in-house yet, but I've read, this is my thing, I've read Leading in Cultural Intelligence. Better yet, I am a CQ facilitator as well, certified facilitator. Cool. And it's very important to demystify what is in the undercurrent. So the undercurrent is, let's look at the undercurrent as the iceberg. There is a picture of the iceberg where you only see the tip of the iceberg, and everything that's below the surface is simmering around, is playing a factor in decision making, in negotiation, in bringing a talent in or not hiring a talent, or those important moments that you're making a decision. Know that all these things that are in the undercurrent are hindering from you to tap into your high performance, to collaborate better, to communicate better. So for that case, I wanted to introduce you to cultural intelligence. And cultural intelligence is a way for you to connect with the other person. So it's not about cultural diversity. It's about the connaissance of knowing how to collaborate with another person from another culture, but also understanding that the way that in the Western society, the way that we do deals, the way that we talk, the way that we maybe dance or eat food is totally different than if you would go to Ghana or if you would go to India or if you would go to Australia, right? Sometimes people have the thought, the misconception of, I've traveled to so many places, therefore I must have a high cultural intelligence. And just because you visited a country or you were there for a holiday, how often did you engage with somebody from there? And that engagement, it's not happening just within 2 weeks, right? It's all about you training your muscle at least for a year or maybe 2 years to understand the lay of the land, how people are operating there, and also how you can adapt to that. So see, cultural intelligence is divided into 4 elements, right? So the first element is CQ drive, the motivation to engage with other people from a different background and different lived experience, maybe higher education or lower education as well. All these things matter into CQ drive. And then there is knowledge, right? What have you read? What have you learned? What have you consumed to put that in practice and also understand the systems, the values, the cores as well? Then there is strategy. So when I'm going to a new company or when I'm going to a new country, there is a value in that to strategize, to learn how people operate there, to learn that some people are all about first building the relationship, then the business. And some people are really direct. They want to build the business. The relationships comes, in sync at the same time. And then there is action. Action comes into adapting who you are a little bit, showing some flexibility, but also adapting yourself a little bit so that you can connect with the audience from another country or another culture as well. But also look at the nonverbal. I'm a person who talks with her hands a lot. I try to dose it because sometimes people may think that it may seem as aggressive, or maybe I'm too passionate, and that can also be misinterpreted as aggressive, whilst that's not in the case. And maybe I'm quiet. That can also be something that can be misread, right?
That's interesting when you say things can be misread, and related to what you said a minute ago. When people travel to other countries, they've interacted. I'm curious about how much you've actually listened versus and observed versus interpreted, and how much you've checked. So how much clarity have you brought in? When you make an assumption, you can test it, you can check it. So, actually the listening skills and the creating clarity, when you haven't brought that in, we've just, made a whole bunch of assumptions and didn't really observe, your actions might miss their aim, might miss their
lose
target.
the deal. You might lose a deal, or you might lose a talent, or you might lose a connection, right? So it goes into play how valuable it is to think about all these different elements that are valuable for you to create that connections, for you to collaborate. And also know that our workplaces are getting more people with a different lived experience, different background. And I'm not talking about cultural diversity per se from another country. Even between Marjolijn and myself, we both live in the same city, but yet Marjolijn grew up in a different different
place.
Smaller than Amsterdam. So our lived experience is different. The way we grew up is different. And
different parts of the country are different. You have cultural nuances there. Make assumptions about it, and you can be derogative about where someone else has lived, or be like, oh, but skip that, get curious, listen, and be clear about it.
It makes me think also about Ted Lasso. There is a snippet. I shared it on my LinkedIn profile. When you look through the videos, you'll see a Ted Lasso snippet. It's about effective collaboration. There is this part where Ted Lasso was playing darts. And Ted Lasso is playing darts in a way that he's underestimated, because there is a bet going on, and somebody's betting against him, like he's not gonna be able to win it. But he talks about the dart play. I don't want to give too much away. I want you to watch the video so that you can understand what I'm talking about. But also the main theme of that video is about be curious, not judgmental. There is so much in the world when it comes to judging each other. How about we activate our curiosity and learn more from another? And when you ask questions from curiosity, because sometimes questions can be even judgmental, can even start judgmental. So I would really want you to practice on the questions that invoke curiosity without adding the judgment in it, because that's when the person will see that you are interested in them.
And there's similar examples from Emily in Paris, for example, where she is judged as being just super tacky, and she has crazy ideas, where she's way too American. Whereas, and that's the fun of the show. And eventually, she's the one who has the great ideas and actually gets the deal, wins the client, has the success. And that curiosity around, well, what is actually her idea? What is her fresh perspective? and vice versa. So, Emily's question could have been, what am I missing here? What do you all know about this client that I don't know yet? So ask the questions. Get curious.
Yeah.
Rather than think you're both
Definitely.
doing it. What you're doing is stupid. No, what you're doing is stupid. That doesn't work out.
Exactly. I see a question and I really want to address it. So I want to bring it up. So right now in the United States, a president and his administration are publicly reinforcing stereotypes that undermine perceptions of Black capability and legitimacy as well. In that context, culture match can unintentionally become a filter that excludes qualified people. So what specific practices help interviewers avoid that trap, and what evidence could candidates expect to see inclusion in? So first of all, I appreciate you. Unfortunately, I don't see your name here, but I appreciate you for asking this question. Secondly, it's also about the way that we have set up this session. So culture clash to culture match. I should have shared it as culture added value, because that's where we are coming from. The added value that somebody can bring within a company culture or within a team culture, that's where I'm coming from. However, there are people in power who are misusing and portraying those who are not like us, which reminds me of Adam Cahane's book, Collaborating with the Other. That's a whole nother
with the enemy. Sorry, I have that one here too.
With the enemy as well.
Warmly recommended.
Definitely recommended, but also we need other people. We need everybody in the workplace, and to just dismiss a person just because they are other than you. Let me put it that way. They are not, they are part of the underrepresented group. It's a loss. In the end, it's a loss for your department. It's a loss for you, but also it's a loss for society as well. And what I would prevent recruiters, but also those involved in the hiring process to do is train yourself to become more culturally intelligent, but also train yourself regarding unconscious biases, and don't do it as a one-off training, because that's where I see a lot of things happen where, okay, we have trained ourselves, we checked the box, now it's done. No, it's just like going to the gym. And a funny thing, I've been doing Pilates for quite some time now, for like
talking about going to the gym. Yes.
Pilates will humble you, but that's a whole nother story that maybe I will share something about. But to be able to do all the exercises with a trainer, you need to give it time. I've come to a place where I've been doing Pilates for like 6 months now, and now I'm in a space where I'm able to teach somebody else, or to instruct and to understand all these different exercises that I've been doing has been help building my muscle. I can even see some abs coming up, really.
So that's been a development, a growth journey for you.
Exactly. Yeah. We should stop treating training and treating valuable development workshops, training, or facilitation as a one-off. Transformation doesn't happen in 5 minutes. Transformation doesn't happen in 1 hour. Transformation doesn't even happen in 2 hours. When does transformation occur? If you frequently do you practice this, but also craft in some time for people to practice, not only spend time at a keynote and thinking that people already know, because the moment that they leave the session, they will forget it. They will go on to the next. They will go on to the thing. So Marjolijn, what do you have to say about the question that was asked?
One specific practice that I'm hearing you mention is, hey, this is an ongoing development area for an interviewer. Setting aside that the context right now in the US, with the amounts of misinformation going all the way to propaganda, and navigating that is a thing in itself. That's a very serious issue. cultural matches between cultural differences within a country are a thing in itself. Of course, we started out about, cultural differences between cultures and countries. I really appreciate the question because it points to also the difference between culture fit and culture match.
Yeah, exactly.
And culture fit has, especially in talent acquisition, in recruitment, in interviews, been a reason to say, you're not like me, so you don't fit here.
Exactly.
And we need someone who will fit. Now, there's a whole nother issue with that, is where that very much excludes getting a range of perspectives and skills in. If everybody there is the same as you, there'll be one thing that gets done, and that's the thing that you're good at. Everything else will get done in a very shitty way. So I don't recommend that. We're talking about culture match, which comes from both sides. So when two people in a romantic relationship are a match, that's because they fit together and because they make the effort to make that relationship work. And I appreciate that, that background to the word choice from culture clash to culture match is, hey, let's make this work. Let's make this relationship, this match work out. For interviewers, to make sure that happens, I believe that clarity around that is very essential. So being explicit about what's expected, being explicit about current practices, being explicit about what the growth journeys are on both sides, is very helpful there. And the other part of the question is, what evidence should candidates expect to see that inclusion is real? So ask for examples.
Yeah.
And that's the same for the interviewer. So when you're being interviewed, give specific examples of cultural differences that you've noticed, of cultural differences that you'd like to learn more about, of benefits, and opportunities that you bring in because you see things differently. So you can both ask and offer specific examples about situations and stories and actions and results that you've achieved related to that, or that you want to ask about in the company. And that's exactly what is real, rather than some nice, fluffy, aspirational talk.
Yeah, and also what I wanted to add with what you just shared right now is be honest where your company is at as a recruiter or as a manager or whoever is doing the interview. Don't go sugarcoat where you are at on your inclusion journey, because that will cause the friction for somebody to walk away during their honeymoon, during the job honeymoon that I referred to earlier as well. And also make sure, what is the budget? What budget for development? Where can they go when they want to train or upskill themselves, right? So there are so many things that are missed in the onboarding process, and even before that we wanted to highlight this conversation and really help the interviewers, but also help the managers, help those who are recruiting, help the organization in general, how to become more culturally intelligent and apply that so that you don't have the next Emily in Paris who is losing a lot of time, and also with Ted Lasso is losing a lot of time with recognizing where they come from, what is different, and also with the miscommunication as well. So thank you.
Yeah, there's a I'm going to show this comment by Marjolijn. Curiosity is the key element in all communications. And I believe it's also a key element in creating that culture match. You can't do it without being curious about what's different here, what's the same, where did that come from, how do we figure that out? So it's that curiosity and also that explicitness. And for some cultures, it's easier to be explicit than for other cultures. My sense is that cultural intelligence does require you to be explicit and clear.
And respectful. Respectful.
With respect.
I see Pasha sharing a question. don't really know how to explain that, but maybe with the next slide I can explain it. So it sounds like the question in CQ is what's the voltage here and what is capable of producing? And I would say everybody has a different voltage. Everybody has a different production level, but oftentimes people don't share their unique recipe to be able to collaborate better. So for instance, I woke up this morning like 5:30. That's my morning ritual where I do my exercise. I do a lot of stuff in the morning before I even go out the door. Why? I don't have any excuses to not exercise. And also I know that this is the ideal sweet spot for me to operate from high performance. That works for me, while somebody else may go on exercise later in the evening or after work. Knowing each other's sweet spot of how to collaborate, how to communicate, but also how to receive feedback. We don't spend enough time to do that. And the way to demystify that, that's where I use cultural intelligence form. And luckily, with CQ, there are assessments without you being vulnerable or sharing personal stuff. There are questions that you can ask. And luckily, also with the Cultural Center or Cultural Intelligence Center, they have assessed so many people. They have done like 1,000+ research, but also have assessed like 300,000 people throughout the whole world that they have the research. They have the scientific evidence, and they have also so many assessments there that they can share that, okay, you're a person who needs to work on their CQ actions. So know how to be able to understand the body language, for instance, right? And to explain it better, I have a slide.
Yeah, great, because it helps you assess where you are in your own individual skill development journey. Yeah, and get pointed feedback of, hey, that's where you could develop further. Yeah, tell me. This is fascinating.
Yeah, another benefit that CQ can provide, this is an additional thing that you can ask for, is understanding your behavioral preferences. So I'm going to walk you through your behavioral preference, because the way that I'm raised, I already shared that I'm Ghanaian, born and raised in the Netherlands. People may assume just because I'm Ghanaian that in professional setting, I might show up later, or I have this Ghanaian finesse that where time orientation, for instance, is not something that I would do. But also when it comes to individual versus collectivism, you would assume that I would be more as a collectivism, whilst also knowing that I am born and raised here. I'm in the middle. So this is where I stand. So with the behavioral preferences, CQ offers 10 different behavioral preferences where you can map your individual behavioral preferences, but ideally map your team, because then you can see, okay, now I understand why you don't reply in the morning, or now I understand why sometimes when we collaborate in groups that's not your preference. So it's not that I'm showing right or wrong in this. I'm showing everybody their behavioral preferences, and having that, shown from the undercurrent, making it more visible above the line is so helpful, because now we can have a conversation about, okay, what is your preference? How would you like to receive bad information? How would you like to receive feedback? Because mind you, if your manager calls you on your phone, that can trigger. That can be a happy news or no bad news. And then, you in your mind, you have already activated a space in your brain like, okay, I'm going to receive bad news because he called me directly. Doesn't always have to be the case. Some people would rather, share a voice note via WhatsApp or Signal, or some people would rather share it via the email. So knowing that of each other can be very helpful. And sometimes my face, not always, but I can show up neutral. I can really show up neutral, but most of the time I do have an expressive face where if I hear something, I don't always have a poker face, but there are often times that I can have an
You're expressive. Yeah. Yeah. And what is interesting here is that this distinguishes which parts of those behavioral preferences are cultural as
Yeah.
opposed to personality
Yeah.
related.
Yeah.
These are cultural aspects rather than,
Yeah.
whatever's going on with your personality. No, this is culture. This is how you've been raised. This is what you have grown up
Exactly.
in, around what's expected of you. What's
Yeah.
normal? What is the norm?
Yeah.
And that really informs how you find out how to work together, how you find out how to make that match. There's always personal nuances and personality differences, but this is all about, when that comes from culture. And how can you work with that? What can you create from that? What innovation can we find there? What new ideas are we discovering there? What did I not know that I didn't know? And now I'm finding out, and I can work with that. I can make good stuff from that. Working with people who are the same as you all the time, you never know what you don't know. You're never going to find out.
And like I said,
nobody there to tell you.
And like I shared before, know that all the images that I shared in this presentation will be in the PDF as well. And also know that it's not about creating a kumbaya environment where there is no conflict, because there is magic in conflict, right? There is also, I think, a Japanese saying of breaking glasses or breaking china, and then liming it or adding gold elements to it as well. There is a name for it. I'm forgetting the name at the moment right now.
Kintsugi. Sometimes you break a dish and you glue it together with some gold, so it becomes even more beautiful. Yeah,
exactly.
And it might bring some spice, and it might bring some sugar, and it's the blend of that makes everything interesting, and also brings you new insights and new experiences.
Yeah. So it all goes to play together with the recent conversations that I have with Minda about talk to me nice, and then the price of too much nice, right? So being nice. And then here I am talking with Marjolijn about people from abroad. Sometimes they are called experts, but I also want to put an emphasis on, it doesn't only apply to those from abroad, it also applies to those who are born and raised in their country and still have a different preference. And sometimes people misread what's been shared here and misread personality assessments. And when it comes to the DISC or to, I think Myers, right, or Bright, I don't remember all the names.
Different personality assessments. They're very much about the individual. This is about cultural background.
Yeah. And it shows so much. I did this last year, and I wish I had this when I started my career. I wish I had this when, with every team that I've worked with, collaborated with, this would have demystified so many challenges, but also demystified so many ways of me collaborating better with the other person, or the other person also collaborating with me better. So, like I said, it's not about people knowing of me if I'm neurodivergent or not. It's more about what are my preferences to collaborate, right? How can I turn conflict into collaboration? How can I adapt or be flexible with my communication? Or how can I build trust?
Yeah.
That's what this screen is about.
It's a big one, big cultural one as well. So in what ways can people bring you in to work on this?
So many ways. So many ways, right? I mean, preferably the both of us will come. So I provide workshops for teams. I provide workshops for team leadership as well, because there's a difference between providing workshops for teams where they are aligning their CQ level and aligning their behavioral preferences, but also to lead a team that comes with a different tool, a set of skills that comes with a different challenges as well. So those sessions are also aligned with that. And reach out and have that conversation about where you are at, because you're at the beginning of this year. There's so much that you can do to be able to win with your team, whether there's a new team or you are a new manager who wants to align where your team is at, know that you can reach out. And sometimes I bring in Marjolijn or even Soraya or other people or Mary Jane, who you have seen as well, to bring in to collaborate together, because I also believe in our collaboration can bring some magic towards that as well. But knowing where you stand, knowing the palette of your team, so knowing the ingredients, knowing the hidden potential that your team has, can be so valuable for effective collaboration as well.
Yeah, the fusion cooking that you can create together. Yeah.
Definitely. So Mary Jane Royce is sharing stress and repetition, building the muscle. Oh, she's talking about Pilates.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Actually building the new neural pathways until something becomes automatic. Yes.
Yeah. So it's not a one-off. It's building structures in your muscles and in your brain.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Good stuff.
And what about you? I'm so excited. We're almost an hour. We're almost longer than an hour. If you have any questions, or maybe Marjolijn, you want to share something from your perspective as well regarding this conversation that we are having.
We mainly work together, co-facilitating for teams, workshops, and you're also great at sharing information, giving keynotes and presentations. When we don't work together, I work individually as a coach, and I also run and participate in projects. And in my coaching, I mainly work on people becoming aware of their own cultural nuances, and also bringing in when does it clash, and how can we be curious about that. When I work on projects with international groups of people, it's really that awareness of, let's be explicit about what we don't know yet, let's be explicit about our assumptions, and then see how it lands for somebody else. I think that, and connecting with what Mary Jane said, I believe that also builds that muscle and that habit of being open and being explicit, and being curious.
Yeah.
You keep going there, and that's how you operate, and that's the muscle that gets built, and that has an impact.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I love that you have this whole series, and this is a part of the whole portfolio of humanizing the workplace. We are all human with all our differences and all our fascinating backstories, and let's just show up with all the size that we have as a human being. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
Let's be curious. If by any chance you have questions afterwards, or you are curious about what to do with CQ or want to learn more, reach out. Like I said, within 3 days, I'll make sure to share a PDF of a summary. Know that it's a short summary, but it's a summary of this conversation, also of share a link of both of us as well, and connect. If you have any questions, how to level up with CQ, or how to level up with team collaboration as well. There are many ways to boost collaboration when it comes to CQ, but also when it comes to you setting yourself and your team up for success.
Yeah. What's the biggest thing you learned from Ted Lasso or Emily in Paris? Last question.
Ted has an annoying positivity, but in the end, it helps a lot. I am not the person who can always apply that, but I did learn a lot from Ted Lasso, and also believe. He has this big sign above his office door, believe. And like I said, I'm not giving too much away because I want people to watch it themselves. And when it comes to Emily in Paris, let's say that there are some elements from Emily in Paris that she gets away with a lot. Whereas people in the workplace, I wonder if they would get away with the mistakes that Emily has made given if Emily was a Black woman or a different person than who she is, right?
She's a very physically beautiful white young woman, and that gives her a lot of privilege. And yet she also has that high energy, that positivity, and that almost to the point of delusional belief in herself.
Exactly.
Which means she doesn't take these judgments that are not necessary anyway. She just doesn't load those on her shoulders. They just, they slide off because they don't need to stick anyway.
Sometimes they slide off, but let's say when she evolved in the series, I've seen that it gets under her skin as well.
True.
Yeah.
So
thank you all for watching this unraveling of Emily in Paris and Ted Lasso in the workplace. I hope that you learn from that, and also know that share this conversation with other people. If you're receiving the PDF, share it with other people. If you're watching the replay, share it with as much as you can with other people, because this is not only valuable for you, it might also be valuable for your colleagues as well. So share it with other people as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vivian.
Until next time. Bye, everybody. Need to press the end stream. Bye.